And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to episode 48 of the Nonprofit Problem Solver podcast. This is season 4 and our first time doing a part 2. So I'm excited to say hello to Sylvia Coletto, who was here with us last week doing part 1. So we were talking about the Google Ads grants. And just before we get into the content, allow me to thank my sponsors, Yachtme, the platform that we are working on right now, and PodPro Audio, who makes professional podcasting easy. Our partner, nonprofit partner for this episode, like last week, is Toybox. That's the global effort to help street children. And if you'd like to donate, you can see a big blue bright button at the top of this replay on Yachtme. You can also go to toybox.org.uk, and $5 will get a street child, a warm drink, and a warm meal. And as we head into the school season, $25 donation would provide a uniform and a stationery kit. So have a look at Toybox, check them out, and support them if you can. Now, moving back to today's point of business. Hello, Sylvia. How are you?
Hello, I am very well, thank you. Yeah,
Good.
It's been a great week.
Good. So last time in the previous episode, for those of you who haven't listened, I would recommend you do so. We were talking about what it takes to actually apply for and start using the Google Ads grant and whether you should go ahead and do that. So let me just summarize that, and Sylvia, you can correct me where I go wrong here. But what we concluded was that the Google Ads grant, which is $10,000 worth of click links, basically in Google Ads grant, awarded per a nonprofit per month. If you're eligible, meaning you have charitable status in your jurisdiction, in the US, that's 501c3. In the UK, for example, it's registered charity. Then, and you've had an annual report, so you've been around for at least a year, probably a bit more, and that your website is reasonably up to date and works on mobile and so on, then you're almost certainly going to qualify for the grant. But should you do it? And the question here, the answer to that question is almost certainly yes. If you have a clear objective of how you want to use the Google Ads grant to add volume or exposure to something you're already doing. So if you're looking for donors or looking for volunteers, for example, and your website is set up to cater to those audiences once people land on your website, then the Google Ads grant is a great way to get them there. So if they're asking a particular question in Google, you use the right sort of keywords to appear on the Google front page, and the link takes people to your website, then your website then will do the rest. So if you can conceive of setting things up in that way, even if they're not quite set up there yet, then the Google Ads grant is probably something worthwhile to consider. Is that fair? Have I got that right, Sylvia?
Yes, spot on. Hence why Excellent. I said, wow, go and summarize it, because you summarize it concisely.
Well, I did. I mean, so to me, it's fascinating that $10,000 is available, and it can be sort of intimidating to think, with a big, well-known household name like Google, and getting a grant of that size. I mean, it's $120,000 a year, and that's substantial. But again, it's not a cash transfer. It's an allowance. It's something that you are allowed to basically use the equivalent of $10,000 a month without actually spending any money on the Google Ads grants themselves.
It is actually quite interesting, as you said. Like, there isn't. I mean, I'm not an expert on the grants that are available out there outside of paid grants like this, but 10,000 a month, it is indeed substantial. I mean, in my world, 10,000 can be. I mean, you need to do a lot of advertising to get to spend 10,000. It is possible, but you're going to have to work really, really, really hard. So you have to think about all the possible ways in which you can spend money. that you're not paying for. So to me, it's amazing. Like, that's a fantastic place to be in.
It's worth reminding, though, as you said, you're not a grant specialist. I'm going to ask you to remind folks about your background and how you came to the Google Ads grant. But again, it's another way of reminding us to say that it's really like a Google Ads allowance.
Yes.
Rather than a traditional grant in the way that we think of grants in nonprofits.
Yes.
And so, as you said, you are not a specialist in grants, but you are a specialist in Google Ads and other paid traffic.
Yes. Yes, I came to paid advertising after going around the houses with all the other areas of marketing, from offline to social media to content to email marketing to going and doing top overall marketing strategies. And then I landed on paid advertising, and then paid advertising is the thing that I love the most. So I decided to specialize, and now I am a paid advertising person that perfectly understands the business side, so that it's not just me creating ads, because believe it or not, you push a few buttons and you create an ad. It's not like it takes a genius, but the important part is, how do you successfully tie the creating the ads in those campaigns to your business goals? And that's the bit that is important, and that's the bit that takes years to develop.
And that's
the actual creation of the ads itself is not hard. Any tutorial can tell you that.
But there is, I mean, we'll get into this. There is a console to manage, and there's some peculiarities with the Google ads, just like there is with Facebook ads and all those different mechanisms for doing it. There's something to sort of get your head around. Yes. But I think what you hit it on the head there about linking it to the business goals and thinking of whether it's Facebook ads or Google ads in this case for nonprofits as part of their business goals is itself for many an unusual step.
It is. For whatever reason, there's always been a struggle to see advertising as one of the tools towards reaching a goal. For some reason, the advertising campaigns or marketing campaigns are thought about kind of in isolation. You create the campaign, you run the campaign ends, and then you look at the data. But it's so easy to get stuck in the data and lose sight about what did we actually want to achieve. Because marketing agencies and marketing people usually tell you, oh, we got X many website visits, and X people did this and X people did that. Great, but was that the business goal?
Right.
So exactly. The fact that you get more traffic to the website is fantastic. It's in itself, it's a bonus. It's something that you didn't have before. But is that traffic the traffic that you wanted, like the kind of people that you wanted? And does your website or the page where you send people, does it explain what you do, what you're looking for, what you want them to do as a result of landing on that page? Is the process smooth, or is there a mismatch? Like, are you expecting people to donate the first time they come to your website? All these things have an effect in not so much on the ads itself, but on your perception as to whether the ads are working or not.
Well, and also whether the time and energy it takes to execute on this strategy. Yes. Because as you said last time, there are certain elements that are not requiring of a genius. There are others that take some time to learn. to use to do Google Ads well. But I think what we're talking about, and I want to set this up here properly, that in order to make the best out of Google Ads, the Google Ads grant, there's a lot you need to do outside of Google and outside of the Google Ads.
Yes.
And I think that we want to line those things up, because we referred to them loosely last time about whether your website's set up correctly and whether you're prepared to do the work to make the Google Ads work. That's what I really want to concentrate on this time. So you've got the grant, or you're about to get the grant, or you've learned from episode 47 that you're a good candidate for it and you should go for it. This is like, okay, now it's live. What do you have to have in place? And so we've started with this idea of the campaign. What is your business objective or your campaign objective? So that's number one. What are some good examples of objectives that you've seen that work well for Google Ads grant?
So the best actually type of campaign is a campaign that's top of the funnel. So that means people who have never heard about your nonprofit before, but they are searching for something relevant. Like, for example, in the example of Toybox, they are searching for something like charities that support children, charity specifically for children, charities, all sorts of these children searches tied to charities or non-profits. So one of the best way to use Google is to create campaigns that are directed towards content on your website. Like if you had events and then you create a content, a blog for the event with all the pictures, with videos, etc. If you have stories about one particular example of the children, in this case, that the charity has supported, numbers on these are all the things we did last year and this is how many children we supported, these are a few examples of what we did. Cases, like real life stories and cases, are the best of them all. And the point of this campaign is to bring all these people that are searching for charities to support, sway them towards these are real life examples of what we do. This is who we are. Learn more about us. You're going to find that then you're going to support us, and it makes sense for you to donate to us, not because we tell you donate to us, but because we show you what we do with the money that you're going to give us. Because just sending traffic to a page where you've got the donation button is not sufficient. People are going to ask, okay, yeah, fair enough that you're a charity, that you support children, but you're asking me for money, but you haven't told me what you do.
Right.
So
yeah, I think that's
a mismatch.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have enough information, so you
Why
sort
would
of
they
collapse the donor journey, the funnel, as you called it, from awareness. Oh, I know who you are, and now you're asking me for money. There's some intermediate steps here, and so what I think you're saying, I'm going to paraphrase it, is that an ideal example of how to use the Google Ads grant, where we want volume and exposure, is at the first couple of steps of the donor journey or the volunteer journey or the supporter journey, where they are really learning about you for the first time, and their motivation, the reason they're on Google in the first place, is to ask a question or look do a search associated with some key factors that you address as part of your nonprofit. And you've got some content to back that up, and the click, they will when they click on Google, they're going to be taken to a content page that's going to explain how your nonprofit addresses the very question that they put in the Google search box.
Yes, and it's when they're looking for different charities to support. They are what they're really asking is, am I going to put my money behind a good cause? So the only way to show them is to have this content on the website that shows them, yeah, you're definitely going to look at this actual real person. We did this. Look at this time where we had this initiative going here, and we did all this. And then look at what you do. Look at the results of what you do if you donate. For example, on the 25 pounds or dollars on a back to school. This is what happens if you donate with the $5. So these are all the meals that we gave children this year. So the more content you can put together that shows what you are actually doing in practice, not just in theory, the more people are going to then sift through the rest of the website, see everything else that you're doing and the mission and everything else that you've got on there. And even if they're not donating the first time, that doesn't mean that they've forgotten about you. On top of that, there is also an option in Google that once you have enough of these people coming to the website, there is also an option where you create a retargeting campaign, which means that you are going to the people who have already come to your website and show them another ad and saying, if you say something different to bring them back to the website. Maybe for the people who come back, you've got something special to offer, a different piece of content, something that gets them more involved. So these are all things to think about.
Would that secondary retargeting ad be shown on sort of randomly, or what would they be doing on Google, or they might be on another site that supports Google Ads, and the nonprofit ad would show in that case? Is that right?
Not on websites. So on the Google Ads for nonprofits only works with search. So there is no display campaign, so there are no images that follow you around. It is pretty specific to people are searching then for something non-profit related, something that you've got keywords for, and they've already come to your website. Next time they're searching for something similar,
that's the thing. They're searching for something similar. So if I was searching for, say, street children,
not any random search.
Children,
it has to still be relevant.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yes. So just to clarify, the retargeting is for.
It's not for anything. It is really specific. Yes.
Okay. So stripping back, what we said was the non-Google things that we wanted to have in place to do this well. We first needed an objective. And an ideal objective, clearly not the only one, but an ideal objective would be top of funnel, attracting people to your website for the first time. And so that objective, that's one thing. The second thing that you referred to in your answer was having relevant content and pages set up on the website to receive those visitors.
Yes. That's correct. And that is very, very important, because the biggest mistake, let me wind back. One of the biggest mistakes that first-time advertisers and sometimes not first-time advertisers make is to send the traffic from the ads to the homepage. The homepage is rarely the most relevant page, because the homepage houses lots of things. It's pretty much the place where you got highlights from the rest of the website. But when people search for something, they search for a specific thing. They didn't search for highlights. So if somebody, for example, searches volunteer charity work near me, and you send them to the homepage got everything. You're supposed to have a volunteer with us page that shows, okay, we need this type of people for X many hours a week. You're going to be doing these things. Would you like to help us out? Reach out to us. So this is, again, one of the examples where it's obvious that the more specific the page is, the better it's going to work, because the moment somebody searches for volunteer jobs for charities near me, this is just an example of one of the keywords, and then you send them to the homepage, they're hit with, oh my God, what's going on? Where am I? Am I in the right place? I don't see anything here that says volunteer, especially because they're going to see the top part of the homepage, and on desktop it's okay, but on mobile, where most of people are searching now, the space is going to be so small that there is no way, unless volunteer with us is your main thing that you're going to say to people at the top, there's no way they're going to see where they need to go in order to volunteer with you. So you've already lost them. They're really confused. They don't know what's going on. And then they hit the back button, so you paid.
Right.
Paid.
It clicked against you, right?
To get a person that then left because it got confused, because it didn't find what they were looking for.
So the I guess paradoxical or slightly unexpected point here is that if your objective is to attract people who don't know about you at all, rather than introduce your organization, as you might think, to the homepage, the way that you attract them is by having content that answers the specific question they're putting into the Google search.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So I think this is really interesting. So we can have a broad objective of bringing new people to us, but when we have to the second requirement of having appropriate, relevant content on our website to receive those visits, to receive those clicks from the Google search, we don't want them going to the homepage, which is general. It's answering questions they haven't asked, because they don't care about us as an organization. They cared about the question or the topics or the keywords that they were putting into Google. So they care about themselves and what it is that they're trying to find, which is not us.
No.
It's not us. But if we set up a landing page or a special page that has content that responds to those keywords, then in the 5 seconds they're going to give us when they click and land, if they can instantaneously see that their question looks like it will be answered,
they're gonna say.
They're gonna stay. So
yes,
we've got that an objective. We've got the relevant content pages, which is quite specific, even if our objective is broad. I think that's the point I wanted to pull out of that. And then the next thing, and this is leaning into the Google side, is the keywords that we're trying to capture. Can you explain a bit? We might segue a little bit here. Just take a step out and talk about this keywords and what it means, what keywords are like. Are they phrases? Are they words? And how they fit into this picture of Google Ads and clicking to relevant content on our web pages.
Oh boy, this is okay. I'm gonna try to simplify this as much as possible.
Well, all right, I'll make a bet with you. Not a bet, an offer. We'll simplify it together.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
So as you go, I will interrupt rudely.
Okay. and if you have a simpler way to say what I just said, please do, so that we can come at it from different directions, and either one way or the other, we make sure that we say the same thing in many different ways. So one will fit more than the others, depending on the person. It's totally normal. But basically, Google works on this model where Google's got all these searches that people make every day. And Google said, wouldn't it be great if we have all this data of what people are searching for? Wouldn't it be great if we said to advertisers, if you have specific things that you want to promote, like, for example, in the case of Toy Box, it's a children charity. Sometimes it's in the UK, or children charity in Milton Keynes, and taking that, which is called a keyword, every time, or most of the time, somebody searches for children charity in Milton Keynes. If we have done our job right with Google Ads, one of our ads will appear in the first 3 to 4 results. You know, when you type anything in Google and you see the list of results, the ads usually occupy the first 3 or 4 positions. Those are the promoted and paid for, and the rest are the non-paid for, so-called organic. So the keyword is a string of words, and I would recommend that you use more than one word.
Okay, key thing here. A keyword, that's just a term that means that basically reflects a topic of search. It's not necessarily a word. It could be a phrase. It could be a jargon term. It could be anything.
Correct. The longer it is, like when it gets to 3 to 4 words, that is actually where the interesting bit starts. And that thing is called a long tail keyword. So what this is, it basically, the more words you've got, the more specific the keyword gets. The more specific it gets, the more you can find out the intent behind the keyword. Because, for example, if you say children charity, could be anything. Could be people who want to be fundraisers, people who want to be volunteer, people who want to find out that how many children charities you got in the UK, people who are doing research, people who are looking to find content.
And any aspect about children. It could it could be childhood. It could be children's diseases. It could be children's education.
It could be
anything. Yeah.
So that's too vague. Now, what I'm going to say is, and this is where it gets complicated, so I am trying to simplify as much as possible. The more specific the keyword is, the less people are going to search for it, because the volume of people looking for that is going to be a lot smaller, but it's going to be a lot more quality, because you know that is exactly what you're looking for.
Right.
Some other companies instead go for the broader, because they want a lot more traffic to their website, or because within that traffic you're gonna see what people are actually searching for, and then you sift through, oh, this is good, no, this is not something that we want, this is not something, oh, this is good, oh, I didn't know people were actually searching for this. So they use it to find ideas. So I'm not saying one is good and the other one is bad. I'm saying there are pros and cons. The lower volume, but more specific, gets you much closer to the goal from the beginning. However, if your goal is to be seen by as many people as possible, the very specific keyword is not what you need. So again, it depends on what you want. but you have to be really
Right.
clear on the goal, and you cannot go for the very specific and then expect to have volume. It doesn't work like that. You have to choose. Or the other thing you can do is you can have a hybrid model where you've got a campaign that is very specific, and you've got a campaign that's way more broad, but you spend a lot less, because in there's going to be a lot of wastage. So you're spending less, and then you're looking for the nuggets in there that you're going to take and move over to other campaigns. See, this is where I'm saying that it's getting complicated.
It gets complicated quick. So let's simplify for a second and just step back for a second. That the key thing here, in terms of what you need off Google, if you will, is the clear objectives. And if it's top of funnel, you want lots of exposure, you still want quite specific content on the web page you're going to take people to. So not your homepage, you're going to take them to something specific, which is related to your objectives. So if you want to start cultivating donors, or you want to start cultivating volunteers, or what have you, you want something which is going to resonate with that desire that's related to your nonprofit. Then when you go to the third thing, then is having the right keywords. And keyword does not mean word, it means phrase. That's a searchable phrase. So the searchable phrases that you want, the longer they are, i.e. the more specific they are, the lower the volume, but the higher the quality. So if you know that, or you believe that a large number of people coming to your donation cultivation page, your first one will be what you want because you think they'll stick around, then you can have a shorter phrase which will have a larger volume. But if you want something very specific, then you would have a longer keyword and fewer people, but you think that they are much more likely to resonate with that content and stick around. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct. It is a personal choice. And what I always say when people ask me which one I should go for, it's a mixture between the business goals that you have, but also, as I say, especially in this case, because you've got the money, the person managing your Google Ads account for you is supposed to be able to set up both.
Right.
Both.
It's a low stakes decision, isn't it? It's a low stakes decision, it seems to me, because
it's a low stakes because you're not paying for it.
Right. I mean, what I was going to say to you as another element, I know we've been talking about the preparation, what you need to have in place, but the other element around your objectives is the time frame. This isn't something that you're going to turn around in a week or 10 days. You're looking at a 4 to 6 month campaign, for example. And I know you can advise me on different time horizons, but the point is, you have time within that. You have scope to try a couple of different strategies and see what works, because ultimately, no one can predict accurately what will work. So you try some narrow, long tail keywords that are very specific, and if the volume is too low, you try something else. You've got scope to do that, it seems to me.
Yes, you are effectively not wasting any money doing that. It is the time invested in doing that. If you have somebody in house that knows how to do all that, or the money investment if you want to bring somebody to do that specifically. But it's very, 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 it's so small, the investment, compared to what you get from it, that shouldn't really, in my eyes, it's a no-brainer.
So one of the other elements of making the best of Google Grants is really investing in some support to do it well. There's things that you cannot really expect yourself to do as a nonprofit. You may have your website outsource, but maybe you can come up with that content and you can manage that in-house. You can clearly come up with your marketing objective in-house, so you should be able to without too much additional support, although you might want to refine that over time. But the actual execution of the Google grants and the managing of it and the looking at the data and whether these keywords worked or not, or that's probably something you don't want to do in-house. Is that correct?
Unless you've got a specialist who is devoting the time to do that, I would advise against it. Or unless you've got somebody who's happy to invest all their time into learning this. If you don't have any of these two, yes, it's probably a good idea if you bring somebody to do it. Mainly because it's going to save you a lot of trial and error. Because it's the thing about advertising is exactly like marketing. 80% fails and 20% works. A person who's got experience in this specific sector is going to get to the 20% much faster. So if you don't care about how fast you get there, yes, you're giving the job to somebody and say, well, eventually you'll figure it out. If you care about, can we consider that it's not a turn on the campaigns today and tomorrow you're going to get results. Consider that there's also that time lag. Should I find somebody who already knows how to do the thing? Probably, but again, it depends on the funds that you've got available.
And the skills in-house. It's like,
yes.
Certain things like, Salesforce, for example, is free to nonprofits, but it's not easy to learn to use. There's a learning curve.
It's a right minefield.
Right, but it's super powerful if it's appropriate for your business, but you have to make a judgment call of whether that learning curve in terms of time and effort and opportunity cost, could those staff be doing, or volunteers or board members, could they be doing something else like networking and cultivating individual donors, for example, or working on a grant application? There's all sorts of other things that you could be doing with that time and energy. So that's a judgment call you've got to make. Either way, you're spending time and effort to make any of these things work, whether it's time and effort that you've got, let's call it on the books because it's within in-house and you're going to forego some other activity that those in-house resources could do, or you're going to actually expend some cash and get some professional expertise who's already invested in and climbed that learning curve and presumably knows how to execute this sort of strategy.
I would say that's pretty much it. It's always a case of investment versus return, and the return is not necessarily money. There's also a return in terms of if I invest all this time that I'm going to be spending to learn how to do this, if I invest all this into fundraising activities or cultivating relationship with existing donors, is it going to have a better return for me? The answer is I don't know, but most likely yes.
Yes.
Because you are doing those things in the best interest of the charity, and you already have donors and you already have those activities set up. So continuing with those activities is usually a lot more ROI positive, so to speak, than starting something from scratch.
Yeah, and presumably those other things are familiar.
Yes.
Even if you don't consider yourself very good at them, they're probably more aligned to your job description than managing paid ads.
I'm sure you didn't start a non-profit or went to work for a non-profit to run Google Ads. I don't think that was your idea.
So let's round this off. We have a few minutes left. I want to just contextualize some of the other things around Google Ads grants in terms of its scope. So we've been clear about getting the best out of it. If you were just starting, you don't want to have a clear objective. You've got the relevant content on your website, so when people click on a Google Ads, your Google Ads in the Google search, that they're going to get relevant content when they land on your website. But let's just assume, for example, you've been doing this for a little while. You've got to grips with it. However, you're doing it. How many different campaigns and things can you have going at one time? How big does this get? Is it one?
It is
limitless. Done as
limitless.
a one campaign at a time, which, as we said, sorry,
It is limitless. So the only limit is the
limitless, like
yes,
infinite.
yes. So
Well, we
you
don't
have
throw
something
those sorts of words around
limitless, as
very
in
easily.
you have something probably over 5,000 campaigns that you can have in one single account. So you're never going to have that many campaigns. So over time, I mean, I usually go with the one step at a time approach because it's the safest one. So you set up a campaign, you run it, you're looking at the data. Does it work? Does it not for the business goals? Okay, keep changing, keep improving, etc. Okay, it works now. Add the second campaign. Develop. Is it working? You make all the changes, optimization. Is it working now? Yes. Add the third one, where eventually you end up having a campaign for each one of your business goals. And you don't stop them. You do not pause a campaign. These campaigns are set up to be evergreen. So there is nothing in those campaigns that has to be time sensitive. The time sensitivity theme comes into place in a different way. So, for example, within a campaign, you've got multiple ads. Some of those ads are, again, evergreen, so they don't mention dates, they don't mention activities, they don't mention events, they don't mention anything. It's literally something that you can turn on now and never turn off. Some other ads are going to be event sensitive, but what happens with those is that those have a time limit. So they're going to be run for a certain period of time and turned off. But that doesn't mean the entire campaign is turned off. It means that those ads will be turned off.
So with a way of thinking of the time-limited nature of things is an overall objective, an overall campaign that's evergreen, meaning it starts and goes on literally forever. But the specific ads you use for that campaign, some of them, most of them perhaps will be evergreen.
Yes.
But you can introduce some time limited ones.
You can introduce, yes,
for a particular event or a very specific time bound objective within that campaign.
Yeah. Also, there are other things that you can do. For example, if you've ever seen, and if you ever recall seeing an ad has got a headline, it's got some text, and then it's got probably usually other 3 to 6 links at the bottom of it, and they're still part of the ad. Those links are called site link extensions. So basically, they are shortcuts to the other most important pages of your website.
Yes.
When you have a temporary campaign with a landing page, for example, you do the Christmas fundraising, right? Typical example. You introduce one site link extension as the fundraising, Christmas fundraising, and that is added to the list of extensions that are going to be shown to people before the Christmas period. And then when you decide that the campaign stops, I don't know, 1st of January, 6th of January, whenever, the site link extension will not expire, but won't be shown anymore because you said after this date, don't show the Christmas fundraising link. So this is another way to introduce temporary things that are important to you. But the main crux of the thing is Google Ads is something that needs to be evergreen. It needs to be there all day, every day, always be relevant. The moment you introduce, the moment you think about it as something you start and stop, it's the moment that you're not going to get the results. Because every time you stop and start again, Google takes a long time to rebuild all the data and all the information that they had before you stop the thing. If that makes any sense.
Right.
Tell me if I have to.
No, it does. It does. So, okay, let's. Yeah. So just to summarize, what we're saying is that the ideal situation for Google Ads grants is starting with one campaign, eventually adding others that match your business goals, typically top of funnel, like attracting potential donors or volunteers who are unfamiliar with your organization but care about your cause or care about some element of your programming, and your Google ad using the correct keywords will draw people to specific content on your website that speaks to those elements of your programming or your cause that people care about, not necessarily introducing the organization straight away. And then it's really up to the website to do the rest of the work. If you want to have a pop-up or something to get someone's email address on your newsletter or something like that, that's outside of Google Ads. But the way your website works and what you're expecting people to do when they come from Google to your website has to really be thought out ahead of time for it to work well. But then you set up campaigns that are evergreen to meet certain objectives, and ultimately you can stack those campaigns on top of each other to meet multiple different objectives, because you're unlikely to use $10,000.
No, you're very unlikely.
Right. Okay. So there's huge scope for exposing your nonprofit to new audiences in the Google Ads grant.
Yes, it's for most of nonprofits, considering the size and considering that they might be working locally, there is no way you're going to spend the entire thing. There's just no way. There are not enough searches to be able to spend the entire thing. For national charities, yeah, it's a different story. They can spend 10,000 like easy. They can spend 20, 30, 40 if they want to, but because they're on a national scale. But yes, as soon as you're smaller and you're localized, you're never going to spend 10 grand.
What about a small nonprofit that's small in terms of, say, its staffing and its overall budget, but its reach is geographically vast and maybe even global? Are they likely to come up to a $10,000 limit?
They are likely, yes, because it's it doesn't really matter how big the charity is in terms of staffing. It just matters where they want the ads to show.
Yes, so, I was just thinking small in terms of the way most nonprofits think of themselves as small in terms of, how big the organization is. Not the size of the mission and the reach, which could be, as I said, it could be global.
Yeah.
Even if you're a very small organization, which means then that people in any country, any jurisdiction can do a Google search and you'll run out of your 10,000 relatively quickly. Yeah.
Yes, it will. That is going to run out a lot quicker. It also depends on the language setting. So if you then have to set up different campaigns in different countries in different languages, then yes, the budget is going to run out much quicker. But these are all things that, just talking about these things here, you've already seen that running Google Ads is not as easy as you might think at the beginning. Because again, it's not about which buttons do I press to create an ad. It's the entire journey.
Yes. And I think that's the great
doing?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to close this off. Is that Google Ads grant is a potentially huge asset for most nonprofits, but it's not a grant.
Nope.
and to do it well, and to use the allowance of $10,000 a month, you need to have a lot of things in place outside of Google, and that's a clear objective. You have to have the right content on your website, and think through the entire journey that people would go through from Google to your website in order to make it effective. And even then, there's a fair bit of experimentation.
Yes, there is. There is a lot. In my advertising accounts, whether it's business or whether it's nonprofit, it works in the exact same way. By the way, there is literally no difference. I'm in the account making some sort of change at least 4 or 5 times a week. And
so nearly every day you're making some sort of tweak.
I'm almost every day, yes. Right. And I also look at that. I have a glance over the weekend to make sure that nothing went drastically wrong while I wasn't looking, because sometimes it happens. There are so many settings, so many things that it's very easy to touch something and all of a sudden you made a mess. So. Right.
Okay, so lots to learn if you want to know more about Google Ads grants. But the way I would like to close off is give you an opportunity, Sylvia, to share where people can find you online, where they should go for more information if they want to put in practice the Google Ads grant, Ads grant strategy, and what you would advise them to do in that case.
Yes, so the easiest way to find me is to go to my website. So that's paidadschool.com. And in there, you're going to have the links to my social media contacts. So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram. Both of them give you a different side of what I do. So if you want to satisfy yourself about what did I do before, am I a nice person? Are we going to work well together or not? You can tell from my social media accounts, because I don't do death by sales post. I actually talk about myself. So that you can tell if you like me or not, which is a very important part of business. And yeah, pretty much any of those is perfectly fine by me, and we are gonna have a chat. The chat, as people usually say, it's a discovery call, but the discovery is actually a mixture between questions that I ask about the nonprofit, but also questions that you ask me about what I did, about myself. Like it's a kind of a cup of coffee and talking about ourselves to see if we're a good fit. So I'm not that kind of person that is all about business. I just want to see if we're going to be working well together, and then everything starts from there.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much for kicking off season 4 of the Nonprofit Problem Solver podcast. This has been episode 48. We had 47, which was last week, part 1 with Sylvia going through whether the Google Ads grant was worth it. So please check that out if you don't don't currently have the Google Ads grant. And of course, if you are really serious about making it work, then I hope this episode has been useful. Please check out Sylvia on LinkedIn, Instagram, or thepaidadschool.com. I'd also like to say thanks to the sponsors, Yacht.me and PodPro Audio, and our nonprofit partner for these 2 episodes, Toybox, who are working globally to help get children off the streets. You can check them out at toybox.org.uk. Thanks, everyone. It's been episode 48. We're here every Wednesday at 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, all the way through to December 15th. Next week, we're going to be talking about end-of-year planning. Yes, it's September, and we're talking about end-of-year planning.
Oh dear.
So I hope to see you next week on the Nonprofit Problem Solver. Take care, everyone.
Take care.